an unimaginable shock to our community.
911, what's the location of emergency?
Please, you need to come to Pulse nightclub right now. Hearing gunshots.
When you have 49 people in your community who were killed at a nightclub, like that changes everything forever.
Now, 5 years later, a long time for most, but mere moments for survivors and families of the victims.
It's been 5 years. How do we get to a better place in the next 5 years?
As time passes, a path forward emerges.
So much of activism in general is future-oriented, but I also feel the need to look at the past and in order to see how far we have come and how far we still have to go.
Healing, recovery, faith.
Pulse became a starting point, a launching point for total inclusion in every church, not just a few of ours.
Spectrum News presents The Pulse of Progress.
Five years ago, we lost 49 innocent souls here at Pulse nightclub in an act of terror, an act of hate, an act of gun violence. The outside of the club, now this, a memorial honoring the lives lost simply because they wanted to love, they wanted to dance. Now we stop and reflect on that love and the journey of healing. It is not easy, it is not pretty, there is conflict, but there is growth. And now we stop and highlight the pulse of progress.
The passage of time can be incredibly painful.
When you have 49 people in your community who were killed at a nightclub, like that changes everything forever.
Pushing us forward while pulling us back.
And it means when hatred runs loose, you love in self-defense. It was something that my sister sent me the day right after the shooting.
Those words now etched on Ricardo Negron's arm. We met Ricardo at the Lake Eola Bandshell on a sunny Monday morning.
It's like a little piece of nature and open air in the middle of the city.
A site he chose for more than the scenery and serenity.
This is a very significant space.
Sitting in front of the rainbow-painted bandshell, Ricardo spoke about surviving the Pulse mass shooting, speaking from the perspective as someone who is gay and Puerto Rican, and as a person fighting for progress.
Trying to understand how to move forward. You know, it's been 5 years. How do we get to a better place in the next 5 years?
In the past 5 years, our community has experienced shifts in politics and perspectives. Progress, still a process. David Madison asked to meet us on Park Avenue in Winter Park, where he lived and worked while a student at Rollins College.
And I have vivid, beautiful memories of coming to this space and having a boyfriend in this space, finding love on the avenue, having heartbreak on the avenue. And I also have painful memories of walking down Park Ave and being heckled from a car for being gay.
David is now pursuing a PhD at UCF. As a historian, he sees progress as cyclical, the past playing a critical role in which path we choose to take.
So much of activism in general is future-oriented, is looking at the next generation and saying, I am fighting for your rights. But I also feel the need to look at the past and in order to see how far we have come and how far we still have to go.
A landmark moment in history, 2015, when the U.S. Supreme Court legalized gay marriage. A ruling which allowed Joey Conicella to marry his husband, Alex.
Alex and I, my husband and I, are a very good representation of progress. And we are the result of years of hard work of people in the community, of allies that have fought for us to be able to do this.
The couple owns the Hungry Pants restaurant in Soto.
I'll be right with you.
And have worked to build an inclusive environment among employees and customers. A sense of inclusivity still not found everywhere. Many within the LGBTQ plus community still searching for that support.
You know, you drive 45 minutes out of the city, of any major city, and you'll find a group of queer people that are being marginalized. And so I think not only do the different sub-communities need help, but we need to broaden where we're helping them.
Even after the 2015 Supreme Court ruling, Florida statute, while not being able to be used in court, continues to define marriage as, quote, a legal union between one man and one woman. John Stemberger, the president of the Florida Family Policy Council, served on the Constitution Revision Commission, fighting to retain that definition.
Progress for us is just preserving our rights to speak freely, to associate who we want to associate with, and to really live freely as citizens.
Perhaps the perception of progress will always be polarizing. Ricardo pointing to March 31st, when a Florida Senate committee pushed a bill that would prevent transgendered athletes from participating in girls' and women's sports. March 31st is Transgender Day of Visibility.
These are your elected officials telling you on your day to be visible, we want to criminalize your existence.
An existence Heather Wilkie advocates for as the executive director of the Zebra Coalition, a group of organizations which provide services to LGBTQ plus youth.
While I've seen so much progress in sexual orientation and acceptance of that, I still think we have a great way to go. A lot, we have a huge gap when it comes to understanding trans and non-binary.
Heather says for her, the journey for the LGBTQ plus community is both positive and painful. 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
I think in ways that, you're kind of trained to feel that way. It's like when you've seen so much happen, forward movement, backward movement, it's sort of just like rewires your brain. And I think that that's how we now see things and see the world.
Progress never promised.
But we're saying, no, it's just the way we want to believe. This is the way we want to live our lives.
Intrinsically political, often uncomfortable.
When laws change and it impacts me, it impacts my personal life, then I have to be a political person.
Deeply personal.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're not a label, right? Like Ricardo is not gay. It's not just a gay person. Ricardo is not just a Puerto Rican living in Orlando. But Ricardo can't take away from Ricardo that he is a gay Puerto Rican living in Orlando who survived Pulse. So it's different layers that make up who we are.
Propelling us forward with perhaps the past in mind.
It's important to me that we take a more intersectional approach. We view that tragedy through the layers of identity that were represented there. This fight is not one that will ever end. We will continue to face those struggles.
Faith and religion, a complicated layer in this entire process. For so many of the family members and survivors, they've struggled with that for the last 5 years because of what happened behind these walls. But progress is being made as love overcomes hatred.
Eddie was the fireball. He was a special boy.
Family memories capture him. A young, charismatic boy becoming a man. Graduation, a rite of passage. A mother putting years of love on display and pressed into every relic.
You had that on, yeah.
That night? Mm-hmm. You can see why Mina Justice lives that moment every day.
Every Sunday is that day. They died on Sunday. That was the end of my life, seemed like. To lose my baby.
Justice was particularly close with her youngest child, Eddie, who died in the attack at Pulse.
I called him Droy. I said, Droy, you gay? No. I said, Mama don't care. Mama always gonna love you.
In losing him, she lost faith.
Well, at that time, I didn't have no belief. At that time, it was hate.
But threads that connect us aren't always visible. Years after the attack, Justice found her way to join Metropolitan Community Church in Orlando.
It's a church mainly of LGBTQ plus people.
If God can use Paul, God can use us.
And Reverend Terry Steed Pierce.
Having to decide, am I going to be gay or am I going to love God? It's not a choice I can make because it's who I am. And Pulse became a starting point, a launching point for total inclusion in every church, not just a few of ours.
It was a community that needed comfort and support more than ever. One unexpected visitor came to break bread.
And he grabbed my hands and he said, God, would you bless this church?
The visitor, the last person Reverend Pierce expected at her tiny church.
I really want to know about you.
Dr. Joel C. Hunter extended a hand in healing.
This is me and President Obama in the Oval Office.
While he once served as spiritual advisor to the president, for 30 years, Hunter was lead pastor at Northland Church in Longwood.
We all had gay and lesbian and bi and some trans, I think, in our congregations, but you didn't talk about it. It was like, and they were afraid to say anything, especially in an evangelical congregation.
But Hunter's change of heart.
When people would comment about LGBTQ people or make comments, that became personal to me.
Changed his path.
There was a lot of blowback, even from my own church.
And so then what? Did it push you out?
Yeah, basically, it told me that the further I got into justice issues, the more I'd probably have to do it outside the institutional church.
Fostering these kinds of conversations, especially within the faith community, is hard. But that's why Dr. Earl Mowat at the One Pulse Foundation is conducting a study, one of the first of its kind to bridge the gap.
The study really looks at how we can bring these interfaith leaders together and facilitate that kind of conversation.
Mowat is surprised many Central Florida pastors are open and want to have that conversation.
And how many do you anticipate sending it out to?
As Hunter helps him make connections.
I think we've taken huge steps toward friendship, toward understanding, because we've been shocked into a recognition of the vulnerability of a community and into the hurts that people have gone through.
Though the thread of hurt runs all the way back to Davenport and Mina Justice's home,
God has a lot to do with this.
She sees her son in every message she now receives from an LGBTQ youth who is struggling.
And I love that people don't even know me. And they reach out and then they tell me their story, that they don't have no one to love them.
A mother's love, like a thread with no end.
But I need peace with losing my son. That's what I pray for.
Mina's love for her son keeps her looking for answers. So many people show up here looking for peace. And we're going to introduce you to one such family, the Wright family, who took a different approach as the Pulse of Progress continues. So many names, so many pictures. This is Jerry Wright. By all accounts, he would give you the shirt off of his back. Whether it was a stranger or a friend he'd known for a long time, he wanted to make everyone feel special. Because of Jerry's murder, his family was on a quest for progress, wanting to make sure that no other families go through the same ordeal they had to live through.
It's a beautiful city. I mean, every time I come, I say Orlando's really pretty.
We live in a city with such vibrance. Our hearts worn on the walls throughout. While the city beautiful can sprout memories of one's best days,
but it's so hard emotionally.
There's a contrast for families like Fred and Maria Wright.
This is a very lonely place to be.
It is difficult to come to Orlando. There's been opening wounds again.
Their son Jerry was out celebrating a job promotion.
People tell me he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. No. He was in the right place. It was just the wrong moment.
This is Arlington Sheriff's Office. Can you tell me where you are?
We're at the nightclub, Pulse nightclub.
Somebody that hated people went in there and started shooting.
There were 48 other people there. Why them? Why 100 Americans a day? Gun violence in this country is taking people all the time. Why?
It's a question they set out to answer. 1 month after their son's murder, they were marching in Washington, D.C., taking to the Capitol in Tallahassee, begging any politician, any advocate who would listen.
Because we felt in our hearts that we needed to make a change.
Change, they would find, is difficult. There was little to be done after Pulse in the state legislature, little to be done in D.C. Time passed, but not long before 17 teachers and students were gunned down at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland.
My son is at Stoneman Douglas High School. He's locked in a closet in the classroom.
In response, in 2018, then Governor Rick Scott signed Florida's red flag law. As a U.S. Senator, Scott, in 2019, filed federal legislation in response to Parkland, requiring the FBI share data with state law enforcement.
This is about getting information on threats into the hands of the right people who can prevent violence and protect our families.
It's progress, the right say, but still not what's needed.
Simple things like background checks for all gun sales. Come on, 90% of Americans agree that we need to go through a background check before you give in a gun.
It's time to stop hiding behind excuses and Senate procedure as a way of getting out of doing the things that your constituents sent you to Washington, D.C. to do.
Pulse survivor Brandon Wolf was at the White House this past spring when President Joe Biden announced a series of executive orders to combat gun violence, cracking down on homemade firearms, tightening regulations on firearm accessories, but stopping short on some points.
The idea that we have so many people dying every single day from gun violence in America is a blemish on our character as a nation.
I think we all want to solve the problem, right? We have real disagreements on how to get there. I believe we have a true mental health crisis in this country. I'm more focused on why someone wants to walk into their workplace and start shooting people, regardless of the firearm.
Republican Congressman Michael Waltz says Florida's red flag law is a good step forward.
The bullet doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. The bullet doesn't care if you're a man or a woman, if you're black or white, or if you're gay or straight. And people from every walk of life are getting killed.
So many lives, so many questions.
You asked us if I asked why. And I asked what? My child was taken in an evil, dark, tragic act. If I can save one life that I might never know about, but Jerry will know, to me, that's what.
A mother's love is forever. The healing process continues. And now moving forward, Pulse becomes a memorial and a museum. We talked to Barbara Poma about her vision for the future as the pulse of progress continues. This sign along Orange Avenue in Orlando, just one word, Pulse, now known worldwide for what happened here 5 years ago. That sign, that name, now poised to become something more, something the survivors, the families, and really anybody in general can latch onto as part of the healing process.
When Daphne Josephat visits the place where hate took her nephew,
yeah, it's still like disbelief still.
Emotions are overwhelming.
5 years, it seems like still it was yesterday.
If time heals all wounds, it stands still when Daphne walks these grounds.
Believe it or not, every time I come here, my heart drops. I'm like it's the first time I came here.
Her nephew, Jason Benjamin Josephat, was just 20 years old.
He hadn't even get to experience life. Why he couldn't be one of the survivors. That's my question to this day.
Daphne says Jason was just beginning to love who he really was.
It doesn't matter what he chooses and who he chooses, or I will be there. I will always be here.
From pain to a promise, her mission now to encourage others to show acceptance, unity, and love.
Us coming together, not being divided or instead of showing love. We need more love. A lot of love in this world.
Help with that mission is coming. Barbara Poma, who opened the Pulse nightclub as a tribute to her brother,
I'm sure he's proud.
To give a vulnerable community a place to gather.
It's emotional. It really is, I think for me, hopeful, it's inspiring.
She is overseeing the planning for the permanent memorial and Pulse Museum, places designed to change people's minds.
Be educated about not only what happened here, but what they can do different in their community and in their house and in their office and space.
Poma showing me the beginning of what will be the Orlando Health Survivors Walk, a path retracing the steps survivors made to the nearby hospital. Amanda Grau, one of those survivors.
I will never know why that night he did what he did, and I mean, I don't know, I just can't fathom that. I just don't understand somebody can have so much hate like that in their heart.
Amanda was shot several times. The first responders who saved her life, inspiring her to become an EMT.
Unfortunately, it took that night to realize, you know what, this is what I want to do.
But for some, moving forward after burying a child is just too much.
I lost my best friend.
Jason's father died this past February. Daphne believes her brother, just 49, died of heartache.
For him, it's like, wasn't me? Why it have to be him? He's so innocent. So he never got over it.
This tragedy, she believes, claiming yet another life.
It's just not 49 family. It's more than just us, you know? It's a lot.
I hope that both properties and all three experiences give the families and survivors levels of peace.
Peace and progress. The Survivors Walk will eventually connect the permanent memorial at Pulse to the museum. The museum will include this large circular structure visible for miles.
If that beautiful white beacon draws you in, and then we can help create some change in this world, then their lives were not in vain, and that's our importance to make sure that their legacies get to live on.
So much happened behind these walls. In some ways, 5 years seems like an eternity, but for the survivors and the families, 5 years seems like mere moments ago. The path of progress and healing is different for everybody. The journey continues, and so does the pulse of progress.